Hi everyone, welcome to week 3. So among other things, this week we will actually be turning in the initial artifact analysis, um, an assignment that we have more or less been talking about since the beginning of class. I just want to take this time to go over it in a little bit more detail perhaps than I have previously. So I'd like to start with the prompt itself. As as you all know, I'm sure, the page requirement is 2 to 3 pages. And I do suggest you try for the 3 pages. And to be honest, after reading your artifact proposals, many of you have already done so much analysis that 3 pages probably won't be much of a stretch. You should be able to get to 3 pages easily, some of you, having seen the work you've already done. I wanted to talk about this sentence. Support the claims you make with evidence and connect the two with clear reasoning. This is sort of the fundamental formula of academic writing. And in this situation, the evidence that you'll be supporting your claims with will most likely be details from the artifact. So if you say this artifact creates an eerie feeling and you don't say anything else about it, I might write next to your paper, what's your evidence, right? And then you might say, oh, well, the cinematography is quite dark. It's in black and white. The edges are a little bit blurred out. And that's the sort of evidence that would support that kind of a claim. Please include a works cited. In this situation, it will probably only be your artifact. And we've gone over this mostly. I guess it's worth reiterating that we're really focusing on details and patterns. Detail, 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 especially in this assignment. What we're not doing is jumping to evaluate what the artifact says, right? Whether what it says is good or bad, or whether you agree or disagree with what the artifact says, whether you like it or dislike it, that isn't the focus of this assignment, especially. And some of you may be coming to certain central arguments. Some of you may be saying, okay, I think my artifact mainly communicates joy, say. And then you might want to start looking at, okay, so the sound design, the audio components are happy. Most of the people are smiling. You might start looking for evidence that is going to support that central argument, which is natural. But just for the sake of being thorough, try to keep an open mind if you are already having those thesis moments, and try to take the artifact in as a whole, without necessarily looking through that lens of, okay, here's my thesis, I'm going to find evidence for that thesis. We will ask you later on to have a thesis and support it, but at the moment, if you think that your artifact is both, if it both expresses joy and at other times it expresses sorrow, that's totally fine. Some of these artifacts can be very complicated. And we've talked a lot about description and summary. I have been summarizing that as description and summary are more what the piece says, whereas analysis is more how the piece says it. So let me just pull up the grading guide quickly. We've gone through this before as well. One thing I want to point out is this ethos, pathos, and logos. I just want to point out that these are just some common mistakes that if you find your piece to be pathetic, that is containing pathos, it's very important to not just say, well, my piece evokes emotion. That's quite general, right? Be sure to tell me what emotion is being evoked. Is it rage? Is it sorrow? Is it joy? Is it anger? Just be as specific as you can. And also remember that logos is not necessarily logical. It's an appeal to the audience's sense of logic. So if something doesn't stand up rigorously to, you know, a logical argument, if it makes many logical fallacies, it can still be an appeal to logic, even if it's not entirely logical. So just keep that in mind. It could appeal to an audience that doesn't, say, understand the um, intellectual rigor that is academic logic. Great. So I've included here a few sample initial artifact analyses. I'd just like to, I suppose, look at one of those with you. This is really what the paper formatted should look like, right? This is MLA style. They're double spaced. It's a 12-point Times New Roman font. It has your last name up here with the page name, the page number following it. Then it has your name, then it has our class, then it has my name, and then it has the date. And you'll notice that this paper also has a title, which I strongly suggest you include in your paper as well. The title, as hard as they are to come up with, it's the first thing that the reader looks at. And when I get 21 of these assignments that say initial artifact analysis, they all start to blend together. So just try for a title, an encompassing title in your initial artifact analysis. It, of course, doesn't have to be a winner. It doesn't have to stick throughout the entire critical analysis project. But we can see that this analysis begins with a little bit of summary, right? It tells what the artifact is, which is just a natural place to start. And this also is a good way to tell if you're only summarizing or if you are performing some analysis. If you just write a summary, you're basically telling your audience, who in this case is me, you're telling me what happens. So once by the way, you should write as if I have viewed all these artifacts, because I will have done that. And that's the difference between summary and analysis. If I've seen your artifact and I read your paper and it's all summary and it just tells me what happened, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, I really won't gain anything new from it, having seen the artifact myself. Analysis, on the other hand, should provide some insight that just, say, reading your artifact or looking at your artifact once, I may not have particularly gotten. So analysis might point to specific details, maybe subtle details that I might not have caught. So that's a good way to tell if you are summarizing or analyzing. Ask yourself, well, if my audience has seen my artifact, does my paper add anything new to their understanding of the artifact? And if the answer is yes, then you've begun to do some analysis. So here we can see how this first paragraph moves from summary into a little bit of specific detail-oriented analysis, right? We get the details that Old MacDonald had a farm, substitutes light life for Old MacDonald. We get some specific detail about what's going on here, get some visual imagery, the sun is rising in the background. And then here's where the large pattern begins to come into play. If I had just viewed this cursor, if I had just looked at this artifact once, I might not have necessarily paid attention to the prominent use of green. This analysis has given me something new to think about. Here we have the rhetorical situation. We know that the company is a ConAgra brand, and that tells us certain things about their purpose and their message for the audience. Here we get sort of a summary, right? The idea is that eating healthy should be joyful. That's sort of a thesis moment for this writer. If you come to one of those, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine. We'll have more chances to do that. What's important is that you have explored very specifically the details that make up your element, the details that make up your artifact, and how those details might translate into meaning. Great. I really look forward to reading your initial artifact analyses. What I've read so far is really fascinating, and you seem to be on the right track. So please don't hesitate to email me with any questions.